Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. My X gene is a creation system. I realized Superman power at first. Chapter 41. What does this mean? Thank you, Lee. Clarice suddenly smiled and took out a dagger that shone with metallic luster from her arms. The style is simple, but it is very textured. X has already told me that this is the dagger you dragged him to forge. It's adamantium. I heard that the price per gram is 20 times higher than that of gold. When Clarice said this, her eyes turned red. You should be happy to receive a gift, why are you crying? Lee Ho-shin was speechless for a while. This girl's mind is the same whether it is a mutant or an ordinary person. Can't guess. I have never been so kind to me since I was a child. Clarice's shoulders trembled slightly. Even after coming to Xavier College, no one treated her so well. Jason and others used to take pleasure in bullying her. Others kept her at arm's length. Only Lee Ho-shin regards her as a friend, stand up for her and encourage her. Now it is giving her such a precious weapon. This made Clarice thank Lee Ho-shin from the bottom of her heart. Coupled with the girl Wai-chun, I met this handsome, powerful, and gentle. How can someone who is willing to spend money on himself be indifferent? Well, this is something to be happy about. Your mutant ability, combined with this Edmund metal dagger, will definitely make you stronger. Lee Ho-shin patted the other party's shoulder and said with a smile. Okay, I will become stronger and act with you in the future. Clarice said with a firm gaze. Quote. Lee Ho-shin felt helpless for a while. He gave Clarice a dagger, just hoping that the other party could protect himself. Instead of performing tasks with him. I believe you. But looking at Clarice's firm gaze, Lee Ho-shin nodded seriously. Boo, I'm going to train. Before Lee Ho-shin could speak, Clarice quickly ran away like a frightened deer. This girl. Lee Ho-shin touched his face immediately, shook his head and smiled. How dare you? Wait for some days to let the fruit ripen, and he will definitely eat it. Stretched out, the weather is still early, the sun is still plenty. He immediately lay down again, took out a book, and covered his face. Continued to enjoy the lazy afternoon. Hoo-hoo. Well, less than half an hour later, another burst of fragrance came out. And it also has a special smell, not the fragrance of a girl, but it smells even better. Alice, you're here. No one in the entire Xavier Academy has this taste. Only fallen angels have this smell. So Lee Ho-shin didn't need to look to guess who was coming. Thank you, Lee. The crisp voice still carried a charm. But Lee Ho-shin was a little numb. Thank me again. He shook his head helplessly. Didn't it mean that pretty girls like to ask for it, and then take it for granted? But Clarice is not like this, and Alice is not like this now. What a headache. I like the chain you gave me very much. It can be combined with my ability. A perfect fit. Alice spoke. Well, as long as you like it. Lee Ho-shin nodded. Seeing Alice's clear and piercing eyes, he let out a sigh of relief. He was really afraid of Alice, so he came to cry too. This is very bad. There is no way. Lee Ho-shin is the one who hates women crying the most. I have already told Professor X that I will stay at Xavier College. However, I will only be with you. Alice said flatly, but her words were full of firmness. Actually, Alice, you are free now. The sky is big and the earth is big, you can go anywhere you want. Lee Ho-shin said seriously. Although he must know Alice, Lee Ho-shin doesn't want her to be free. The world is not big, but it is not small. There will always be a harbor where people can feel at ease. Anyway, with Lee Ho-shin's strength, even the whole world can sense the familiar chi. And he had already recorded Alice's anger. As long as Lee Ho-shin is willing, he can move anywhere through teleportation. Come to Alice's side, so he didn't worry about Alice's going to stay at all. No, this world has rejected me since I was a child, so I don't belong to it either. But you didn't reject me, so I belong to you. Alice looked at Lee Ho-shin and said flatly. But her eyes were shining with determination and seriousness. This kind of gaze is very straightforward. Ah. Lee Ho-shin was taken aback for a moment. He immediately understood that this is a woman who dares to love and hate, and is very stubborn and individual. Okay, as long as you like it. Now that Alice has already made up her mind, Lee Ho will not deliberately shirk it. Then follow me. Many beauties with exotic styles are not only pleasing to the eye, but also exciting and enjoyable. Boo! But the next moment, Lee Ho-shin was attacked again. Dark purple lips, with a softness different from Alice's purple. It also has a unique fragrance. I'm going to polish the proficiency of the nebula chain. The next mission, let me protect you. Alice turned and left immediately. Walking is very chic, very straightforward, and even more cool. Well, a completely different personality than Clarice. Cold and pretty. I like. Lee Ho-shin laughed. However, Professor X's efficiency is really high. It's only been 3 days, and the weapon I mentioned has been built. And it was directly sent to Clarice and Alice. He accepted the other party's love. In another 4 or 5 days, the power of rules will be full again. What kind of system should we get? Thinking about it, Lee Ho-shin felt a little sleepy. But before he fell asleep, a pleasant scent of perfume wafted in. Plum. A voice rang again. Again, Lee Ho-shin turned his head and saw Katie, the phantom cat, directly doing it. You are enough, don't keep taking advantage of me. Katie is gone. Not surprisingly, Lee Ho-shin was kissed forcibly again. It's just that when Katie hinted that he could go further at night, he refused. Am I that kind of person? Ha ha. Right now, he just wants to become stronger, so love that bullshit love story. Women only affect my sunbathing progress. So, cultivate it first. After all, after exposure to the sun, there is no need to worry about affecting the process. Like at night when there is no sun. He's so handsome, he really has troubles. I used to read novels, and felt that those authors made the protagonist so handsome, and I didn't have a sense of substitution at all. After all, none of them are as handsome as me. But now, my sense of substitution is completely full. He shook his head, stopped thinking about it, and continued to concentrate on basking in the sun. In a blink of an eye, it's night. Lee Ho-shin immediately walked out of the bedroom and came to Katie's dormitory. He came to ask the other party to borrow books, and he had nothing else to do. But before he could knock on the door, he was dragged away by Alice. Soon Lee Ho-shin was dragged by Alice to the grove behind the dormitory building. Does Alice want to? Lee Ho-shin's eyes lit up immediately, and he thought of the other party's lips. And that career line goes way beyond Clarice and Katie. His throat felt a little dry, and he suddenly wanted to drink a glass of beer. Lee, if I become ugly, will you dislike me? Just when Lee Ho-shin was thinking wildly, Alice suddenly spoke. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Hearing Alice's question, Lee Ho-shin was stunned. I suddenly discovered that there is this thing growing on my forehead. Seeing Lee Ho-shin's puzzled face, Alice didn't hesitate, and directly lifted the covered hair on his forehead. I saw a single horn growing out of the upper right corner of his forehead. It is the kind of slightly curved, upward purple-red unicorn. Hoo. At this time, Lee Ho-shin could even hear Alice's breathing. The other party just stared at him like this. Quote. Lee Ho-shin was speechless for a while. If Lee dislikes me, then I will leave Xavier College, find a place deep in the mountains, and never come out again. Alice secretly swears in her heart. What a cool character, how can you say that about yourself? Lee Ho-shin said suddenly. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. This time it was Alice's turn, with a dazed look on her face. Look at Lee Ho-shin. Alice fantasized about Lee Ho-shin's many answers. For example, I don't dislike it, I dislike it, it's okay, it's average, it's not ugly, it's acceptable. But never thought that Lee Ho-shin would answer like this. This role is a perfect match for you. It makes your already charming and face even more seductive. I love it to death. Lee Ho-shin spoke immediately. This is not a yellow ape comforting Alice, but his heartfelt words. The other party is that kind of coquettish beauty, like a vixen. Full of exotic style. Now that there is an extra unicorn, it has more characteristics. It seems that there are some fat nerds who like cat-eared girls, rabbit-eared girls, little fox girls and so on. When Lee Ho-shin saw Alice with a single horn, not only did he not feel ugly. On the contrary, it feels strangely beautiful. Are you serious? Alice said in disbelief. Her eyes were even moist. I can prove it to you, but don't be angry. Seeing this, Lee Ho-shin said seriously. It is good. Alice nodded heavily. In fact, she really wanted to know if Li Hoshan was coaxing him, or if he really thought so. But the next moment, she was stunned. I saw Li Hoshan raised his hand and grabbed Clarice's hand, with a trace of sincerity on his face. Take a sip. Alice blushed. What? Well. What? Quote. Half an hour later, Li Hoshan returned to the dormitory in a daze. Too strong. This made Li Hoshan completely taught a lesson. It turns out that there are really only exhausted cows, and there is no worse fertile paddy field. Even the Saiyans, a fighting nation, will eventually run out of manpower. Lie down. Forgot. I wanted to find Katie. Forget it, it's not a loss anyway. Hee. Li Hoshan smirked and entered the dormitory. This is next door to his former dormitory. Because of the previous dormitory, Alice lived there. But as soon as he sat down, Clarice knocked on the door. Okay. Tired of life? I made pizza, try it if it's delicious. Clarice spoke immediately. Eat pizza. Li Hoshan was slightly disappointed. But after all, it's a saint's moment, so I don't care about it. The supper was good, and Clarice left with a smile. Because of one sentence, she was moved all night. Clarice asked Li Hoshan why he treated her so well. Li Hoshan was indeed a little puzzled, and said, "Do you need a reason to be nice to people?" So Clarice laughed and left. But after seeing the other party leave, Li Hoshan fell into deep thought. Need a reason. In general, it is necessary. But this night, Li Hoshan couldn't sleep because of back and forth. Just go to the combat space to have a look. Although the super combat space system has been created, Li Hoshan has not formally entered it to practice. Spirit enters. Whoosh. Suddenly, Li Hoshan's spirit entered the super battle space. In this, Li Hoshan is a god. Some are similar to the monthly reading space, where time, space, and quality can all be controlled. Li Hoshan immediately turned the surrounding area into the venue of the world's #1 martial arts club. Next, choose your opponent. Under the rules of the super battle space, Li Hoshan can create opponents with up to 3 times his strength. Let's have an opponent with the same strength as me first. Li Hoshan thought suddenly. Whoosh. Suddenly, a person exactly like Li Hoshan appeared. This second generation of Li Hoshan was created by the system. Has the same strength as Li Hoshan. Bring it on. Li Hoshan immediately gave a low shout. In an instant, the second generation Li Hoshan, who looked extremely dull on the opposite side, rushed up. Boom. Terrifying air erupted from the opponent's body in an instant. A punch broke the sound, and he came directly. So fierce. Not even a buffer. But he wasn't a target either, so naturally he wouldn't wait to be hit, so he punched him out. The two forces of hundreds of tons collided immediately, as if two trains collided. The air exploded. The powerful shock wave directly sent Li Hoshan flying. Quote. With the same power, the other party was fine, but he was directly blown away. God Turtle Shockwave. But before Li Hoshan could react, the other party blasted over with a shock wave from the tortoise. Boom. Li Hoshan's whole body was scorched black. In an instant, his spirit dissipated and his consciousness returned to reality. This is the state of being killed by the opponent. Once Li Hoshan's spirit is killed, the system will protect his consciousness from returning. I was beaten to death by myself. Same power. But the second generation of Li Hoshan only used 3 moves to kill him. Is this the huge experience gap? Li Hoshan finally understood his fighting level. It's even better than Shuzu, who has just acquired Wu Yazi's skill in Tianlong Babu. It's much worse. I really need a lot of actual combat. He took a deep breath, and the spirit entered the battle space again. Come again. Whoosh. The second generation of Li Hoshan who killed him earlier appeared before his eyes again. Boom boom boom. The second generation of Li Hoshan, who doesn't talk too much harshly, rushed forward without saying a word. The two of them are like that terrible beast, punching and kicking you crazy. Carrying out a brutal hand-to-hand fight. At critical moments, Li Hoshan too will also use shockwaves to attack. And the timing is almost perfect. The painting style of this battle is more and more like the Dragon Ball that Li Hoshan has seen. For a while, Li Hoshan's combat mode was gradually brought up by the second generation of Li Hoshan. It's a pity that this time, he still only persisted for less than 15 moves, and Li Hoshan's spirit was killed and left the battle space. In reality, Lee Ho-shin was covered in sweat and gasping for breath. Although he was knocked out of the combat space, he didn't suffer much damage. But it is still very powerful for mental consumption. Come again. After taking a few breaths, Lee Ho-shin entered the combat space again. Crazy fighting started. He was killed again and again, and entered again and again. Until his mental power is completely exhausted, he can no longer enter the battle space. This stopped, and this time, he has been killed 11 times by the second generation of Lee Ho-shin in the battle space. But the effect is also remarkable. From the very beginning, Lee Ho-shin persisted in less than 3 moves, until now he was able to persist in 68 moves before being killed. The improvement in strength can be seen. Sure enough, progress will be crazy only after experiencing a real life and death battle. Now he is almost twice as strong as before. This is still under the condition that many external conditions such as strength and energy remain unchanged. The improvement of pure fighting awareness has made him have a stronger control over power, and his strength has also improved. Of course, even so, Lee Ho-shin still couldn't tie with the second generation of Lee Ho-shin. Not to mention the battle space, which can increase the strength of Lee Ho-shin's second generation to 3 times that of Lee Ho-shin. Looks like I'm still a long way off. Lee Ho-shin shook his head helplessly. Then he lay down on the bed exhausted and fell asleep. With Saiyan blood, he wakes up full of energy again. After taking a shower, Lee Ho-shin called Alice next door to have breakfast together. I didn't see Clarice. Normally, at this point Clarice should come over to have breakfast with him. Soon after the two finished their breakfast, Lee Ho-shin took Alice to class. It turned out that there was no class today, but I went shopping in the city. To put it bluntly, it is to go shopping and let the students out. After all, Xavier College is good, but if you live here for a long time, you will feel very bored. After a long time, some people even feel like going to jail. Some students seem to be so closed that they were about to go crazy. It is a carnival for them to be able to go shopping in the city at this moment. This made all the students excited. It's just that Lee Ho-shin lacked interest. But soon he was taken aback because Clarice came over. But today's Clarice actually wore a yellowish dress. Although it is very old, it is still very beautiful on her body. Does it look good? Clarice asked in a low voice, with a blush on her face. Okay, Lee Ho-shin nodded. Clarice usually wears her school uniform. It was the first time he had seen Clarice in a dress. Humph, the phantom cat kitty next to her couldn't help but drank angrily. You look good too. Lee Ho-shin turned his head to look. I saw that Katie was wearing a casual floral t-shirt today, with green shorts underneath. Wearing black sunglasses. Looks good. Matching the face of a Western woman, it also has a touch of charm. You have good eyesight. Katie's face immediately brightened, and then she said with satisfaction. Aren't you angry? Lee Ho-shin looked curiously at Alice next to him. The strong should have more than ordinary people. Otherwise, what is the purpose of trying to become strong? Rush for love, Alice said coolly. Lee Ho-shin was taken aback for a moment. Can't help giving a thumbs up. Look, what a good woman, she really made a big mistake. He couldn't help but thank Storm Girl. If it weren't for the other party's strong request for him to participate in the last X-Men mission, Lee Ho-shin never encountered such a good thing. Drip. Soon a bus drove over from outside. Storm immediately led the students into the bus, and the bus was full in a blink of an eye. It's just that due to some mutants, the appearance is really not suitable for shopping. So everyone in this car, except Alice. Basically, they all look similar to humans, and there are not many mutants with non-human appearance. As for Alice, the opponent's wings can be retracted. Then put on a coat, it is not very obvious. As for the newly grown horn on his face, he put on a hat to cover it up. Such a dress, on the contrary, looks more mysterious and pretty. And before the departure, Professor X was very considerate and gave each student a shopping bonus of 200 yuan. Let them buy some snacks and toys in the city. When you arrive in the urban area, don't run around. If you want to eat cake, you can follow me. Storm Girl immediately began to tell everyone. Because the X-Men can leave the academy at any time. So for Storm Girl, Cyclops, and Colossus, I often go shopping, or recreation in the urban area near Zerval College. Basically, I am very familiar with the shops, specialties, supermarkets, etc. in the urban area. For a while, there was a lot of noise in the car. But Li Houshan felt a little bored, so he lowered his head and pretended to sleep. But the spirit has entered the battle space. Boom boom boom. The fight begins again. An hour later, Li Houshan had been killed 8 times. But for the 8th time, he persisted until 100 tricks. However, Li Houshan did not fight the 9th time because the bus entered the urban area. The people leading the team this time are Orlo the Storm, Logan the Wolverine, and the Big Colossus. After entering the urban area, everyone got off the bus. The time is 3 hours. After 3 hours, to gather here, everyone must come back. Late arrivals are absolutely not allowed. Otherwise, there will be no chance to come out to play in the future. Now divide the team, you can take more than 2 people to go together. Of course, you can also travel with me or Logan. However, students under the age of 10 can only follow Colossus and go to the playground to play. Okay, let's disband now. Storm Maiden Orlo spoke immediately. Li Houshan was naturally called by Orlo, and went shopping together. So Alice, Katie, and Clarice all followed. At the same moment, Xavier College, Scott's dormitory. He woke up with a start. Chin, are you calling me? Cyclops touched the corners of his eyes immediately, and wept. Wait for me. He got up immediately, rushed to Professor X's office. Scott, your mind is messed up. Professor X looked at Cyclops Scott, who rushed in, and couldn't help but speak. Teacher, I feel it, Chin is calling me. Cyclops spoke immediately. Scott, Jean is dead. Professor X sighed softly. He knew that Cyclops Scott had very strong feelings for Jean, but Jean was dead. No, none of us saw Chin's body, maybe she wasn't dead at all. Scott spoke up. He didn't want to admit Chin's death at all. No one can survive under such pressure, not even Chin. Although these words were cruel to Scott, Professor X still said it. People live in the present and cannot always remember the past. Teacher, let me go and have a look. Scott knew that Professor X had good intentions, but he couldn't go against his inner calling for Chin. These days, he has been able to feel that Chin is really calling him. This is not his delusion. You can't go wrong with that feeling. Okay, let's go, Professor X said immediately. He knew very well that if Scott was not allowed to go, the other party would be trapped in this torture forever. Sorry, teacher. Scott took a deep breath and said apologetically. After all, he also knows that the X-Men are not manned enough and the situation is very dangerous. Especially these days, Professor X has sensed an unknown crisis. Only Scott knows about this. The professor didn't tell anyone else. But at such a critical moment, Scott has to travel far to Lake Yaki to find Chin, who is believed to be dead. In Scott's view, this is somewhat sinful. Be careful, I'll wait for you to come back. Professor X smiled and nodded. Urban area. Li Houshan followed behind Storm Girl board. Both Clarice and Alice showed smiles on their rare faces. Obviously, for girls, whether they are ordinary people or mutants, they have no resistance to shopping and shopping. It's just that looking at the prices of the goods in the store, these girls feel a lot of pressure. Although they are mutants, the money in their hands is no different from that of ordinary girls. Only X called out and gave 200 beautiful coins as shopping gold. This made them envious. Let's go, what do you want to buy? Go and swipe your card. Li Houshan immediately handed a card in his hand to Clarice. Plum. Clarice was taken aback for a moment. Don't worry, there are 20 beautiful coins in it, which should be enough for you to shop. Li Houshan waved to Alice next to him as he spoke. Ah, where did you get so much money? Clarice was taken aback for a moment, and couldn't help but exclaimed. On the other hand, Alice next to her didn't ask any more questions, picked up her bank card, and walked into the store. After all, for Alice, everything about her can be handed over to Li Houshan, including her life. So there is no need to be polite to Li Houshan. And she wants to buy things too. Clarice, you have to learn more from Alice, and don't be so alien to me. Li Houshan immediately raised his hand and rubbed Clarice's head. In the past few days, Li Houshan's height has grown a lot. Now he is close to 2 meters. It gave Li Houshan a feeling of killing by touching his head. Don't worry, This money is the reward and salary you got from participating in the X-Men operation last time, you can spend it with confidence. Lee Ho-shin said with a smile. I'm not afraid. Even if you snatched it, as long as it is given by you, I can spend it with confidence. Clarice took a deep breath and nodded heavily. Rusy can be taught. Lee Ho-shin suddenly laughed. That's right. His Lee Ho-shin's woman can definitely not become the Holy Mother. Soon Clarice followed Alice and walked into the store. Both of them had envious eyes before, but now that they have money, they naturally don't have to suppress the urge to buy. For a while, I frantically tried on clothes and jewelry. Lee, you are eccentric. The phantom cat kitty next to her pouted immediately. Okay, then you go too. Seeing this, Lee Ho-shin shook his head helplessly. Oye. Hearing what Lee Ho-shin said, Katie rushed in excitedly. Lee, you have to handle this relationship well, otherwise it will be very dangerous. Storm Maiden Orlo shook her head helplessly. Lee Ho-shin is even wilder than Logan in this respect. After all, Wolverine met one and loved one at any rate, not several at the same time. Don't worry, teacher, I will take care of it. Lee Ho-shin smiled. It's already a chaotic Zongman world, and he was already a dead person who crossed over. If it is still the same as the mentality of ordinary people. Find a place to hang yourself. After a moment, Clarice came out. I saw that the other party was wearing a noble wine red dress with some rubies on it. Purple lips, burgundy eyeshadow, willow leaf eyebrows with light makeup, and a lavender-colored hairpin on her coiled hair. The exquisite facial features were brought to the extreme in an instant. What a nice view. Lee Ho-shin's eyes lit up immediately, and he couldn't help but exclaim. Sure enough, people rely on clothes and horses rely on saddles. Although Clarice has good qualifications, she is also very beautiful without makeup. But after putting on makeup, dressing up, and changing into clothes and jewelry, the temperament of the whole person is also different immediately. This is definitely not the effect of 1 + 1. Of course, it will not be 1 × 1, but directly changed from 2 ones to 11. Increased by at least 10 times. This is the difference between a naturally beautiful person and a Puxin person after careful grooming. You have piled up all the makeup and beauty filters, and it's just over 9 points. But Clarice scored more than 9 points without makeup. Once well groomed, it's more than 10 points. Does it look good? Clarice lowered her head immediately, and asked a little shyly. Ha ha ha, look over there. Lee Ho-shin didn't answer Clarice, but grabbed her finger and pointed to the side. Okay. Clarice looked at it with some doubts. I saw some men not far away, who had already stopped, looking at Clarice with shocking eyes. Boom. Even one person, for stealing a glance at Clarice, hit his head on a lamp post. PFF'd. Seeing this scene, Clarice immediately smiled. It turns out that I am so pretty too. No matter how beautiful it is, it only belongs to you. Clarice whispered in Lee Ho-shin's ear. Let's go. At this time, Alice also came out from inside. Suck. Another shocking woman. The other party was wearing a Western-style windbreaker and boots, with her hair spread out over a shawl, and she was wearing a black hat. With her appearance, she is not weaker than Clarice. It's all so beautiful. Katie, who finally came out, was a little embarrassed. Although having her now is definitely very good. Putting it on this noisy urban street is enough to increase the rate of turning heads. Comparable to Clarice and Alice. It will be inferior. Katie, you look good too. Clarice seemed to see what the phantom cat was thinking, and immediately walked up to her and said with a smile. Really? Seeing what Clarice said, Katie raised her head and asked in disbelief. Of course it's true. Clarice nodded with a smile. Thank you. When Katie saw what Clarice said, a smile appeared on her face. Seeing this scene, Lee Ho-shin immediately showed a gratified expression on his face. Clarice, this girl is very nice. This is definitely good news for Lee Ho-shin. Being able to have such a woman by his side is definitely the dream of any man. Come on, I'll take you to get your hair done. Orlo, the storm girl, left at this time, came up and said to a few girls. Wow, that's great. I've long wanted to change my hairstyle. Katie suddenly became excited. Others also expressed great interest. Speaking of hairstyle, it seems that I haven't changed my hairstyle for a long time now. Lee Ho-shin suddenly thought that he had obtained Kakarot's inheritance, so he had the blood of a pure-blooded Saiyan in his body. So from now on, Lee Ho-shin's hairstyle will never change. And Saiyans age very slowly. This is to make them in the peak period of being able to fight in most cases. Soon Orlo led the crowd to a nice styling shop. Everyone immediately went in and began to tidy up. As a result, nearly 2 hours passed by. It's almost past the agreed time. So everyone bought some food and rushed back to the agreed place. To Lee Ho-shin's surprise, Alice actually likes to eat desserts. As a result, several nearby dessert shops were almost sold out. It didn't take long. Everyone returned to the previously agreed place. Basically, everyone has a big bag or a small bag in their hands. There are clothes, snacks, and toys. But when everyone saw the three of Clarice, they were immediately shocked. In just a few hours, Clarice and the three of them have changed so much. Especially those male students, their eyes were straightened. As for those female students, their eyes were turning red with envy. Clarice, you are so beautiful, can I be your friend? Finally, there was a male classmate who couldn't help but go forward to strike up a conversation. Unfortunately, before Clarice could speak, a chain appeared in Alice's hand. Then, under everyone's shocking eyes, he caught the male classmate and hung him on the big tree next to him. Clarice belongs to Lee, Alice suddenly said to the surrounding male students with bright eyes. Quote. Now everyone couldn't help but shuddered. Okay, little guys, get in the car. Logan next to him touched his nose helplessly. Are young people these days having so much fun? This made Logan, who had lived for many years, couldn't help complaining. Is it because he has lived too long and is a little behind the trend of the times? Everyone got into the car immediately and looked at Alice with a trace of fear. It's a rose with thorns. The male student who was hung on the big tree didn't dare to look at Alice anymore. That's right, I didn't hurt Alice for nothing. Seeing this scene, Lee Ho-shin immediately showed a satisfied look on his face. The bus starts quickly, gradually heading towards Xavier College. After returning to school, Lee Ho-shin immediately took a shower, and then returned to the dormitory to continue practicing. He must be able to draw with the second generation of Lee Ho-shin who is twice as strong today. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too embarrassing? I am original and authentic, but I can't beat a Exabe product. Of course, the main reason is that Lee Ho-shin has discovered that he is far from the second generation of Lee Ho-shin who is twice as powerful. Not much difference. Earlier, he had been able to persist for 100 moves before being killed. If he gritted his teeth and persisted, wouldn't it be a tie? Obviously the same strength, it doesn't make sense that he can beat me. So Lee Ho-shin fought again, unwilling to admit defeat. Although there is a time difference between the time flow in the super battle space and reality. But it was night in a flash. And Lee Ho-shin has been fighting continuously in the super battle space for a full 30 hours. Finally, at the last moment when his spirit was about to be exhausted, Lee Ho-shin hit the shock wave of the turtle and blasted Lee Ho-shin's second generation to death. Hoo. After leaving the super battle space, Lee Ho-shin panted heavily. At this moment, he was already profusely sweating, and he was extremely exhausted. But his eyes became brighter and brighter. Finally defeated the second generation of Lee Ho-shin who had doubled his strength. Lee Ho-shin is very satisfied with the results of this practice. Although it took a little longer, he won in the end. Next time, try to defeat him within 100 moves. Lee Ho-shin immediately set another small goal for himself. He touched his stomach, he was already a little hungry. So I went to the cafeteria to get something to eat, took a shower and went to bed when I came back. Although the super battle space is convenient, it consumes a lot of mental power. Even if Lee Ho-shin's mental strength is hundreds of times higher than that of ordinary people, he will still be exhausted every time. Fortunately, the results of cultivation are obvious, which makes Lee Ho-shin painful and happy. Silent all night. The next day, the sky is bright and clear, and there are no clouds in the sky. Another day of sunshine. Same place, same action. He lay down comfortably, picked up a magazine and covered his face, enjoying the warmth brought by the sun and the improvement of his strength. Lee, I heard that Mr. Scott is going on a trip. At this moment, Clarice came over, sat next to Lee Ho-shin, and said enviously. Ms. Cyclops went on a trip. Lee Ho-shin was taken aback when he heard the words, then sat up and looked at Clarice. When did he leave? With the character of Cyclops Scott, how could he leave the X-Men to travel under such a tense situation at Xavier Academy? This is absolutely impossible, so Cyclops isn't traveling at all. If Lee Ho-shin guessed correctly, the other party should have gone to Yaki Lake to look for Chin. Sure enough, it has entered the stage of the plot. Lee Ho-shin's eyes immediately focused. Next should be Scott, who was swallowed by the resurrected Chin, or the Phoenix Girl. This represents the third battle of the X-Men, which is officially about to start. With my current strength, I should be able to compete with Magneto or Chin, right? Lee Ho-shin secretly thought in his heart. He was a little unsure. If he is allowed to destroy the Earth, Lee Ho-shin may be able to release a super powerful shockwave of the tortoise and blow up the Earth directly. This is very simple, but it is not necessarily necessary to defeat Magneto or Phoenix Girl. Just like in Dragon Ball, many villains can easily destroy the Earth, but in the end they lost to Kakarot on the Earth. The truth is the same. But in the third battle, there were many things that could threaten Lee Ho-shin. Like mutant antidote, because all of Lee Ho-shin's abilities come from his X gene. He can't guarantee that if one day the X gene disappears, he will lose the mutant ability. Whether it is still possible to have these powers that have been obtained now. Maybe you can still have it, but you may also lose it. So Lee Ho-shin won't gamble. From this point of view, that guy Chin may be my enemy in the future. Then shall I go and save that big wrong Scott? Lee Ho-shin suddenly thought secretly. After all, the other party still took care of him in his life at Xavier College. Lee, Professor X is calling you. At this moment, Katie came over with a hint of excitement on her face. So happy? Lee Ho-shin asked curiously. From what the professor looks like, he might be on a mission, so he can make money again. The last time I went to the city, I fell in love with a necklace, but it was too expensive, so I didn't want to buy it. Katie spoke. Last time, didn't I give you the card? Lee Ho-shin suddenly said with some doubts. That necklace is worth more than 17,000. I'm not ashamed to swipe your card. Katie said with a smile. Quote. All right. Lee Ho-shin didn't expect that Katie could still think of this. Just focus on this point, and beat those green tea and gold diggers in the previous life. He thought that women in the West were very open-minded, so naturally they would be free-spirited when it comes to spending money. But he didn't expect that it would save him money. Let's go. Lee Ho-shin got up immediately. He will not let go of the money he took for nothing. And Lee Ho-shin was still thinking about whether he should tell Professor X about Cyclops Scott for a while. Lee, stay safe, Clarice said softly. Well, don't worry, I am very strong. Lee Ho-shin smiled and rubbed Clarice's hair. Katie pouted beside the sweet one. Seeing Lee Ho-shin and Katie leaving, Clarice clenched her fists. I will try my best. I won't be here forever, I can only wait for the news of your return. A flash of determination flashed across Clarice's eyes, and she turned and walked towards the training ground. Soon Lee Ho-shin and Katie came to Professor X's office. Logan the Wolverine, Orlo the Storm, Colossus and Poppy the Iceman were already standing by and waiting. Scott left the school, I think you already know. Seeing Lee Ho-shin and Katie coming, Professor X immediately looked at everyone and said. Well, I was just about to ask you, teacher, where did that guy Scott go? Orlo asked immediately. Xavier Academy is understaffed right now, and there aren't enough X-Men personnel. At such a critical time, that Scott guy. He even left the academy. This made Orlo a little speechless. After all, apart from the professors, she and Scott are the two main people in the academy to manage. The two of them are not just the combatants in the X-Men. He is also in charge of managing the entire academy at ordinary times, but he is not as idle as he imagined. In a huge college, internal affairs, logistics, and administration are all involved. Absolutely not easy. Now that Scott has left, there is only Orlo, the Storm Girl, left in Xavier Academy. After all, the professor still has his business. Scott's off to Lake Yaki. Professor X said immediately. Quote. Before Storm could speak, Wolverine Logan next to him changed his expression slightly. Everyone knows where Yaki Lake is. And it's also known that Cyclops Scott goes there. Definitely not for play. Scott looked for me before, and he said he felt the call of Jean. Professor X said. What? Wolverine Logan's face suddenly changed. There was also a look of doubt on the faces of the others. Jean is dead. This is something everyone knows. But now Scott actually said that he felt Jean's calling. Is it a trap? Storm Girl said in a deep voice. After all, in her opinion, Chin is a dead person, and it is absolutely impossible to summon Scott. And Scott should have no enemies. Then this must be a trap for the X-Men. When the others heard Storm say this, they also showed serious expressions on their faces. There are many enemies of the X-Men. Xavier College is not as peaceful as it appears on campus at the moment. However, in most cases, the people present would not convey that sense of urgency to the academy. Especially Professor X, he hopes that the students of the college can live a happy and peaceful life. The professor wouldn't tell them the truth until they were able to graduate from the academy or successfully join the X-Men. This is also the original intention of Professor X to create the school. Provide shelter to those sprouts, and wait for the sprouts to become shaded before sheltering new sprouts. From this point of view, Professor X's idea is somewhat like the will of fire. But I don't think it's a trap, it's very likely that it really is Chin. At this moment, Lee Ho-shin spoke. Swish. Everyone immediately looked at Lee Ho-shin. There were puzzled looks on their faces. After all, Lee Ho-shin probably doesn't know Chin. I saw this name in the school record, and I also read the X-Men log, and I got to know her briefly from it, and I also knew Chin's ability. Her mind power is a very powerful mutant ability. I don't think she will die so easily, is it possible? When she was in a life and death crisis, her potential suddenly exploded, which led to the second awakening of mutant abilities and then gained new abilities. Finally survived. Lee Ho-shin spoke immediately. In fact, the reason why Chin was able to survive was not the second awakening of mutant abilities at all. It was because the power of the Phoenix Girl sealed within her body exploded. This also caused the revived Chin's temperament to change drastically. Cyclops can be said to be a big wrong species, and his death was really in vain. But Lee Ho-shin couldn't say these things. Otherwise, many things cannot be explained at all. It will only get more and more troublesome. But mutants can awaken their abilities twice. While somewhat rare, it's not impossible. Isn't even Lee Ho-shin himself considered a mutant who has awakened his second ability? When everyone heard Lee Ho-shin's explanation, their expressions changed slightly and they became thoughtful. As for Chin's strength, Fan also has some understanding. Although in their opinion, Chin might not be as good as Professor X, but she definitely surpassed most of them present. If the opponent's ability is awakened for the second time, it is really possible to become stronger. That is a mutant at the same level as Professor X and others. Perhaps it is really possible to survive under that terrible pressure. Oops. But different from other people's reactions, after hearing what Lee Ho-shin said, Professor X next to him felt his heart skip a beat. It occurred to him that Jean might really be alive. Because no one knows better than him the power that is sealed within the Chin body. How terrible it is. Shit. If Chin's personality recovers, then Scott will be in danger. Professor X suddenly became anxious. Although he didn't know the Phoenix Girl inside Chin, he just regarded it as another personality of Chin. But there is one thing, Professor X is very clear. That is the revived Chin, and it will be very dangerous. If Scott really met her, he would most likely be killed by the other party. Professor X is very clear about this. Scott left on a motorcycle, and here is at least 2,000 kilometers away from Lake Yaki. If you go there with a fighter plane, you should be able to catch up. Logan, you and Storm, take Lee Ho-shin and Bobby, and immediately go to Yaki Lake to stop Scott. Professor X said immediately. Just intercept the revived Jean before Scott sees it. Then there is still a chance. It is good, Storm Girl said immediately. After what Lee Ho-shin said earlier, although everyone is not as aware as Professor X is that Chin has another powerful personality that is sealed. But they also felt a little uneasiness. Now with the approval of Professor X, everyone stopped hesitating immediately, turned around and got on the plane to chase Scott. Especially Wolverine Logan, with a more complicated look on his face. Just when Lee Ho-shin and the others left Xavier Academy, Scott was running wildly on a motorcycle. There are only more than 300 kilometers away from Lake Yaki. And the running motorcycle, with the howling wind, crazily shuttled across the road. There was some confusion in Scott's mind, but deep in his heart. But there was a faint voice, calling him all the time. Time passed little by little, and finally after more than 2 hours, Scott stopped haggardly. Not far in front of him, the lake surface glowing with white sunlight reflected on his face. Chin. Looking at the calm Yaki Lake, Scott's memory went back to that day. This made Scott, who was already distraught, even more confused. In fact, he didn't know, the calling deep in his heart. Is it his fantasy or is it real? Scott. However, at this moment, the calling voice deep in Scott's heart became louder and louder. This. Scott was taken aback for a moment, looking at the surface of Lake Yaki. The voice just now was. There is no doubt that Scott has heard the voice just now countless times in his dreams. He subconsciously walked towards the inside of Yaki Lake. Scott. As he walked closer to the lake, the inner voice grew stronger. But his head seemed to have been severely hammered. But Scott still gritted his teeth and staggered to the edge of Yaki Lake. He panted heavily and looked at the calm lake. The sudden disappearance of the voice made Scott suddenly feel angry. His eyes turned a little red. All fake. Chin. Scott couldn't help but roared suddenly. Boom. The next moment, his eyes suddenly released terrifying laser beams. The terrifying high temperature instantly pierced Yaki Lake into a gully, and a large amount of water curtain spread towards the surroundings. All fake. Scott choked up, growling heartbroken. Goo. However, at this moment, Lake Yaki, which had gradually calmed down, suddenly rolled over, and then a terrible siphon phenomenon appeared in front of him. Accompanied by the swirling vortex getting bigger and bigger, it seems that a terrifying giant beast is gradually waking up in the lake. Scott was taken aback by this sudden change. He stared blankly at the center of Yaki Lake, and saw that the whirlpool was getting bigger and bigger, even piercing through the sky and the earth. The next moment, there was a powerful force that was both familiar and unfamiliar, and instantly exploded from the vortex. Bang bang bang. In an instant, it seemed that the whole earth was shaking. The dazzling light instantly shook the surroundings, and then fell into Scott's shocked eyes. A figure that had appeared countless times in dreams slowly flew out from the center of the vortex. The powerful momentum froze the world in an instant. The violent water waves stopped instantly in the air, as if time and space were frozen. Chin. When Scott saw this familiar figure, hot tears flowed from under the mirror. His body even trembled with excitement. Gradually, that figure slowly flew towards him. Looking at the face of the person in front of him, everything is so familiar. But Scott didn't notice that the other party's expression was cold, stiff, and slightly ruthless. It's not the ruthlessness of scumbag men and scumbags, but the silence of the inhumane world who treats everything as a dog. It's not the same feeling with the Chin he is familiar with. But seeing the love in his heart come back to life, Scott has no time to think about it. Scott just wanted to give Jean a good hug. Scott. Just when he was about to say hello to the love in his heart, Chin suddenly spoke. Well, then without waiting for Scott to answer, he kissed him directly. The long-lost kiss made Scott's heart melt instantly, and he was so excited that he seemed about to explode. Chi. But soon he discovered that the energy in his body was even more terrifying than the siphon phenomenon he saw just now. The energy of the laser world linked in his eyes actually vented directly towards Chin's mouth. Chin, are you devouring my energy? Scott suddenly trembled, his eyes full of shock. He didn't expect that the love in his heart that he had been looking forward to for a long time, since it was the first moment of meeting. Just want to suck him dry. Chin, which absorbed Scott's laser energy, seemed to become stronger. An unimaginable fluctuation bloomed from her body. The lake water poured back into the heaven and earth, and the earth trembled. At this moment, a fighter plane flew over the Yaki Lake. God, what is that? A look of shock appeared on Iceman Bobby's face. That's the siphon phenomenon formed by cloud and mist water vapor. When Orlo, the Storm Maiden, saw this scene, she even showed a horrified look on her face. You know, she herself can control the weather, gather storms, gather thunderclouds. But at this moment, seeing this terrible phenomenon of cloud and mist water vapor siphoning, I still couldn't help being shocked. The coverage area is as high as nearly meters, and the radiation is more than 100 kilometers. Even at an altitude at this moment, you can still see its vast scene at a glance. It simply exceeds the mushroom cloud produced by the atomic bomb. Is this the power of Chin? No, to be more precise, it's the power of Phoenix Girl. Seeing this scene, Li Houshan immediately showed a serious look on his face. The strength shown by Chin at this moment is definitely far beyond the ordinary Omega level. And this is just Chin, initially releasing the power of the Phoenix in her body. It has reached such a terrible level. It's really powerful and terrifying. Li Houshan couldn't help sighing suddenly. The power of the Phoenix is also different from Li Houshan's combat power. His combat power is reflected in the application of Qi. After all, anger is something that everyone has. Theoretically speaking, ordinary people on Earth can also increase the strength of Qi and increase their combat effectiveness through cultivation. Although it's not necessarily stronger than alpha-level mutants, it's definitely not worse than delta-level and beta-level mutants. Of course, that kind of Zon 5 scum doesn't count. And that's in theory. Is that really Chin? Storm was shocked. This powerful thought power is somewhat familiar, but it can be compared with Chin's previous thought power. What a world of difference. If the former Chin had the power of a small river, the current Chin is the sea, even the starry sky, and the universe. It's not a dimension at all. No way, this is too strong. Iceman Bobby couldn't help but exclaimed. With this kind of thought power, he instantly felt that his ice would be dissipated if he couldn't touch the other party at all. Even for a moment, Bobby the Iceman faced Chin and had an unrivaled feeling. Chin. Wolverine Logan's eyes suddenly became moist. Although he couldn't see the piano below, he could feel the familiar power of thought. Even at this moment, the power of this thought is boundless. But Logan still felt that familiar breath. He is also a Aegean. Now that Chin is not dead, he is also excited. But when he thought of Scott still below, Logan felt a little uncomfortable again. Scott is lucky, the general will catch up. If it is a little later, he will be sucked dry. Li Houshan suddenly thought to himself. He really wanted to save Scott. After all, it didn't take much effort. When the other party was in the academy, he had to take care of him. And besides me, other people here want to save Scott, but they can't catch up. Thinking of this, Li Houshan immediately said to Storm Girl. Teacher Orlo, open the cabin, I'm going down. Although Li Houshan has teleportation, he can transfer directly. But this is Li Houshan's whole card, and he will not reveal it until the critical moment. Anyway, he can fly, even if it is high, he doesn't care at all. Li, this is high altitude, you will die if you open the cabin. Iceman Bobby exclaimed suddenly. Others also looked at Li Houshan. Obviously didn't understand what he meant. Let me go, although I may not be able to catch up, but at least I won't fall to my death. The Storm Girl said immediately. Then look at Logan. Don't look at me, even if I have a strong self-healing ability, it's hard to say if I jump down from such a high level, even if I don't die, but when I heal myself, Scott will be cold. When Logan saw Storm Girl looking at him, he said helplessly. This is definitely not that Logan is unwilling to save his love rival, but that he really can't do it. Jumping down, maybe you won't die, but it's useless. Although he also went down to see Chin earlier, but he was really powerless. Hey, you forget, I can fly. Seeing everyone's appearance, Li Houshan smiled and shook his head. Yup, Wolverine Logan's eyes lit up immediately. Only then did I remember that Li Houshan could fly. When carrying out the X-Men mission before, Wolverine was flown out of the Mutant Institute by Li Houshan's neck. The Storm Girl and the others just remembered. Li Houshan is not only powerful, comparable to Colossus, but also has the energy attack comparable to Cyclops, and he can also fly. Even more powerful than Orlo the Storm. After all, Storm Girl is actually not a fly at all. It can only be called suspension. Swish, the cabin of the fighter plane was instantly opened. The powerful wind pressure instantly swept over everyone. Fortunately, everyone had already made preparations, so they were not blown out by the wind pressure. And Li Houshan took advantage of this wind to fly out in an instant. Boom, I saw white air waves flashing around him. The whole person cut through the sky in an instant, bringing up a long white air wave and rushing into the water mist tornado below. It's great to be able to fly. Iceman Bobby said with some envy. Yes. Wolverine Logan also nodded. Although his self-healing ability is ridiculously strong, he can't fly, and sometimes he can only be used as a target on the ground. Lee Ho-shin is indeed too strong, and all abilities are very balanced. Storm Maiden Orlo also nodded in praise. His strength exceeds that of Colossus, his energy attack is comparable to that of Cyclops, and he is good at flying. If such a person is an enemy, he will be very difficult to deal with, but if he is a teammate, he will instantly feel very reliable. Fortunately, Lee Ho-shin has now joined the X-Men. Whoosh! Lee Ho-shin's speed was very fast, reaching supersonic speed in a blink of an eye. This is already the limit of his flight in normal state. If it weren't for the protection of chi around him at this moment, at this extreme speed, he might have been able to rub against the air, turning his whole body into a ball of fire. The altitude seems to be far away, but under the blessing of supersonic speed, it passed through the water mist tornado in just a few minutes. Entered Chin's mind force field. What a strong mind. Lee Ho-shin couldn't help sighing immediately. The thought power around him at this moment is as thick as seawater, filling the entire space. For a moment, it was obviously flying in the air, but it seemed like swimming in the sea. The powerful thoughts turned into resistance, impacting Lee Ho-shin. Jin, are you really going to kill your most important person? Lee Ho-shin immediately gave a low shout. During the roar, the powerful chi directly penetrated the space, blasting the water mist tornado out of a circular cavity. Jin, are you really going to kill your most important person? Jin, are you really going to kill your most important person? Jin, are you really going to kill your most important person? In an instant, Lee Ho-shin's voice seemed to have an echo, and quickly surrounded the field of thought power. No response. But through this circular hole, Lee Ho-shin found Chin, but he didn't seem to respond at all. It's too late. If this continues, Scott will be sucked and killed. Lee Ho-shin's eyes were fixed, and he didn't care about anything else. Transform. In an instant, I saw golden flames burning all over Lee Ho-shin's body. The powerful Super Saiyan aura spread all over his body in an instant. Drink. I saw him growl again. The previous Lee Ho-shin just blasted the water mist tornado out of a circular hole. But after the transformation, he actually pierced through many spaces this time, directly penetrating Chin's mind force field. Whoosh! Lee Ho-shin flew over in an instant. In a blink of an eye, he came to Chin and Cyclops. Woohoo! However, at this moment, a terrifying storm of thoughts erupted from Chin's body. The powerful storm of thought power seemed to turn into substance, solidified in the surroundings, and quickly circled around, isolating Lee Ho-shin outside. Break it for me. Lee Ho-shin raised his fist suddenly, and attacked heavily. After turning into a Super Saiyan, he was in a slightly excited state. The desire for fighting is also stronger. Chapter 51. Boom. A full-strength punch in the Super Saiyan state is definitely more powerful than 1,000 tons of power. Enough to blast an asteroid into pieces. Not to mention around Chin. This instinctive thought force stormed. Boom. The powerful Nyan Libo was instantly shattered. Lie down. Lee Ho-shin immediately broke Chin's defense, appeared in front of his eyes, and pulled her off Scott's mouth. So ugly. But seeing the face full of blood vessels in front of him, like swollen lymph nodes, covering the rough skin, Lee Ho-shin couldn't help it. Although Lee Ho-shin had also seen the group photo of the X-Men, although Chin at that time was not a goddess, she could barely see it anyway. But the Chin in front of him was like a ghost from hell. What? Lee Ho-shin dragged Scott away from Chin's mouth, and immediately made Chin growl. The Phoenix girl who had just recovered from Chin's body needed energy to activate the power of the Phoenix in her body. And the pure energy in the laser world connected by Cyclops on Scott's body can just supplement the energy needed in her body. But in such an important situation, it was actually destroyed by Lee Ho-shin. So Chin suddenly became a little crazy. Boom! All of a sudden, the terrifying thought force centered on Chin's body again and exploded towards the surroundings. This thought power is really strong. Lee Ho-shin frowned suddenly. Although this power is different from chi, he can also feel the destructive power contained in the power of thought. Suddenly felt that I should make a template for the inheritance of God of Destruction Beerus. If Lee Ho-shin has destructive energy at this moment, anything can be easily destroyed and destroyed. At this point, the Saiyans can't catch up with the god of destruction even if they ride rockets. But there is one thing that Beerus, the god of destruction, doesn't have. That is the protagonist halo. After all, Kakarot is the protagonist of Dragon Ball, and Lee Hoshin obtained his inheritance template. Maybe get his aura too. Of course, all of this is Lee Hoshin's guess, and he doesn't know whether it is true or not. But this is not the important point. Anyway, as long as you have the power of rules, you can create new templates again. The big deal is that he is on top, plus the characters you want. So in addition to the god of destruction Beerus, Lee Hoshin has decided to add the template of the demon Puwu. Ability to survive and adapt to the environment. Even stronger than god of destruction. Break it for me. But even now, Lee Hoshin is not so easy to handle. The power of the Super Saiyan burst out instantly. The terrifying aura, like a golden storm, collided with Chin's mental storm in an instant. Chi chi chi. The two storms rubbed against each other, producing streaks of lightning. Rumble. For a moment, the sky darkened. The ground is trembling, and the entire space seems to be distorted. It seems that even though I have transformed into the first form of Super Saiyan, due to the different world rules, I am not as powerful as in the Dragon Ball world. Based on the fight with Chin, Lee Hoshin immediately had a sense of his own strength. He got to know more and guessed the limit of his strength. Definitely surpassing Magneto and Professor X, with Omega-level power, but compared to Chin who awakened the power of the Phoenix, it is not much different. It should have a slight upper hand, but it has not reached the level of crushing. But there is one thing that no one else can compare to. That is, if Lee Hoshin wants to destroy the Earth, although it may be a little more troublesome than Thanos, it is only a little more troublesome. The other party just snapped their fingers, and it could be done. And Lee Hoshin's turtle shockwave can also be easily resolved. It seems that I won't be able to wake up if I don't give you some violence. Lee Hoshin immediately released all the power in his body. God Turtle Shockwave. He immediately displayed Kakarot's favorite Qigong wave. And stood on the left. Boom. The terrifying blue beam of light instantly shattered Chin's mental storm, and the powerful shock wave blasted Chin into the distance. Then a terrible explosion directly evaporated Lake Yaki. The Phoenix girl fell weakly. After this wave, Chin, who had no energy in her body, suddenly fell into a disadvantage and was extremely weak. Slaughter the soul. Boom. Chin's eyes released an unimaginable coldness. This look is definitely not something that humans can have. It was an indifferent expression that dismissed all creatures and creatures in the world, treating them as food and energy. On it, Lee Hoshin clearly understood the meaning of the inhumanity of heaven and earth, which treats all things as dogs. Is this the Phoenix girl? There was also a serious look on his face. In this way, it can only be a real life and death fight. In the previous battles, Lee Hoshin always kept his hand, and did not really kill. After all, Chin also belongs to the X-Men, and is the old lover of Scott and Logan. It's not easy for him to kill the opponent directly. But now it seems that there is no killer. An unimaginable force erupted from the opponent's body again, and the consciousness of Phoenix Girl gradually began to completely occupy Chin's body. Is it caused by the pure energy in the previous world of Cyclops Scott? Still fighting with me, causing her to receive more deep stimulation. Feeling the power erupting from Phoenix Girl at this moment, Lee Hoshin's eyes flickered. Although his current body is powerful, it is actually far inferior to Kakarot in Dragon Ball. After all, the opponent has gone through countless battles, wandering on the edge of life and death, and practicing the Realm King Fist to break through the limit, and his body has been strengthened time and time again. Relatively speaking, although Lee Hoshin is getting stronger every day, overall, his current physical strength is still weaker. Of course, he believes that it won't take long before he can become stronger. But for the time being, it is still not enough, which also leads to the power of the first form of Super Saiyan who inherited Kakarot. But in fact Lee Hoshin is weaker than the real Kakarot of the same level. In addition, the rules of the universe in this complex world seem to be completely different from those in the world of Dragon Ball. This led to the fact that he was clearly a Super Saiyan, but he did not have the power to suppress everything and crush the entire universe. But it's normal to think about it. After all, the world of Zongman is not that simple. Countless evil gods, aliens, gods, 5 creator gods. There are even multiple universe rules such as parallel universe, single universe, multiverse, super universe, and omnipotent universe. It is by no means comparable to the simple Dragon Ball universe. At this moment, Lee Hoshin understood these things more and more. In fact, this is where he got a little rough from the start. However, it's not too late, I still have a lot of time to become stronger. Lee Hoshin suddenly made a decision in his mind, and he was even more full of fighting spirit. His goal is to become the strongest in the world, let him be a carefree and free salted fish. Senior Chin, from now on we will not only compete, but also decide whether to live or die. Lee Hoshin immediately retracted the golden air waves all over his body, and his aura became more condensed. Chin. And at this time, Scott, who was already skinny and more tragic than reincarnation of dirt, murmured in a coma. Boom. This call suddenly caused the body of Phoenix Girl opposite Lee Hoshin to tremble, and a trace of confusion flashed strangely in her cold eyes. The next moment, he looked at Scott, who was not far away from him. What? Seeing this, the whole person suddenly became insane, and his terrifying thought power doubled again compared to before. Boom boom boom. Lee Hoshin's expression became serious immediately, and the golden air burst instantly. He was about to take out his whole card and use teleportation. Just break through the mental storm, and then use teleportation to get close to Chin's back and smash the opponent's head. You can definitely kill her in an instant. However, at this moment, Chin burst out with thoughts. After a sudden pause, she disappeared instantly, and then Chin fell down directly. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. This sudden change immediately made Lee Hoshin stunned. Hoo. But without waiting for Lee Hoshin to continue his actions, the fighter plane that flew over from the side stopped immediately. Storm, Wolverine and others rushed out in a hurry. Especially Wolverine Logan. Excited, he almost couldn't help roaring. Chin. Wolverine Logan was immediately excited when he saw the scene in front of him. He didn't expect that Chin really didn't die, and was resurrected now. The worst thing is, the person who sensed Chin's call was not Logan, but Scott. Logan felt a little bitter in his heart. Am I not as important to you as Scott? This big injustice. Seeing Wolverine Logan like this, Lee Hoshin curled his lips involuntarily. Swish. Seeing Chin fainted, Storm Girl and the others also came over, and Lee Hoshin then removed the chi surrounding his body. Lee, you are so handsome. Iceman Bobby immediately spoke with a face full of admiration. They also saw the battle just now on the fighter plane, it was extremely fierce. Ha ha. Lee Hoshin suddenly smiled flatly. He still expended a lot of physical strength in this battle, and now he feels that his stomach is about to starve to death. Let's go quickly. Storm checked Scott with a serious face. Okay. Lee Hoshin nodded. He also wanted to go back to Xavier Academy sooner. Now he is very hungry, he just wants to eat something quickly to replenish the energy in his body. This made him finally understand why the Saiyans in Dragon Ball were so edible. Because chi originates from the body, it belongs to the unique power in the human body. Most of this power comes from the body. The main source of energy for the human body comes from food. From this point of view, people must eat 3 meals a day. Otherwise, it will definitely cause the energy to fail to keep up, and even destroy the movement of energy in the body. The underground base of Xavier College. Professor, how is Scott? Storm Girl asked with some concern. Do not worry. Although his life fluctuations are extremely weak, his spirit is still intact, and his mind has not suffered major trauma. As long as you take careful treatment, you can still recover. Seeing Orlo's worried face, Professor X said gently. This is already a blessing in misfortune. If it had been a little later, or if Lee Hoshin hadn't rescued Scott in time, then the captain of the X-Men would have died at the hands of Phoenix Girl. This will make Professor X extremely distressed. After all, his original intention was to let Scott take over his current position as the next principal of Xavier College. When the others heard what Professor X said, they immediately let out a long breath and relaxed. They didn't want Scott to die like this. What about Chin? After hesitating for a moment, the Storm Girl still asked. When Storm asked about Chin, the others held their breath and looked at Professor X. The scenes of Chin attacking Scott earlier are still in the minds of Iceman Bobby and others. Although Anna, Colossus, Phantom Cat and others did not experience that battle when Scott came back. The skinny and inhuman appearance still shocked them. One can imagine how cruel Jean did to Scott at that time. In this way, everyone had a little doubt about Chin's real identity. Is this person really Chin resurrected? Even when they thought about it, did this person look the same as Chin, but he was not Chin? They couldn't imagine that Chin, who was strong and loved her teammates, would rather sacrifice herself to save their Chin. To do such a thing. There is nothing wrong with Chin's life characteristics, but the mental fluctuations in her mind are very violent. Sometimes high and sometimes low, quite chaotic. As for when I can wake up, it's really hard to say, and Professor X fell silent when he said this. Seeing that the professor was silent, everyone did not urge him, but just looked at him. Seeing that everyone was staring at his Professor X, he shook his head and sighed, and continued. She is indeed Chin, but not quite Chin. Puff. As soon as these words came out, Colossus immediately became confused. Professor, what do you mean by that? Although the others didn't ask, they all looked at Professor X suspiciously. I don't understand what the other party means by this. To put it simply, her body is indeed Chin, but her consciousness at this moment is not Chin, but the instinct deep in her consciousness. Or more directly, like a second personality. Professor X immediately explained to everyone. Second personality. Storm was taken aback for a moment, and asked with some doubts, Teacher, are you saying that Chin has schizophrenia? Generally only schizophrenia can have multiple personalities. It's just that this made Storm a little confused, even unbelievable. After all, Chin is a mutant of psychic power, and her psychic power is huge enough to affect reality and form a storm. Such terrifying mental power is definitely highly condensed. How can there be schizophrenia? Actually, Jean had a second personality very early on. Professor X immediately told everyone. Regarding this matter, Professor X originally didn't intend to talk about it, but kept it in his heart for the rest of his life. But now Chin was resurrected from the dead, and the second personality in the body even occupied the brain and controlled the body. This made Professor X have to tell the matter. Otherwise, he would not be able to explain to the group of students in front of him. Even these students may have stimulated Chin because they did not understand the truth of the matter. If Chin loses control again, there is a high possibility that someone will be injured or even die. This is what Professor X does not want to see. Only Lee Hooshin next to him shook his head. Chin's problem is not just a matter of the second personality. It's because Chin's body is possessed by the power of the Phoenix. That is the most primitive power of the universe. But it is far from simple. Moreover, the piano in the film and television drama is far from being as perfect in controlling the power of the Phoenix in the comics. Otherwise, there will be no out-of-control incidents. However, the current Professor X should only regard the Phoenix power in Chin as Chin's second personality. So it is. Everyone immediately understood. They didn't expect that there was a second personality in Chin's body. And this time, it wasn't Jean who wanted to kill Scott. It was the lack of energy in the body after the second personality woke up, which led to a sharp increase in hunger, which caused a loss of control. That's what hurt Scott. At this point, from the end, Chin found out how Scott was hurt by himself. And the main consciousness broke out, and he controlled his behavior and passed out, which can be seen. Well, the truth of the matter is like this. I hope you don't blame Chin, let alone provoke her. Professor X said. Everyone nodded. In any case, Chin saved them at the beginning, and Chin's popularity among the X-Men is quite good. Everyone said a few more words before leaving here. But Lee Hooshin was kept by Professor X. Professor, what do you need from me? Lee Hooshin was suddenly curious. Lee, I heard that when you fought against Chin, you exploded with great strength. And a transformation that looks better and stronger. Professor X asked. He actually knows a little about Lee Hooshin's transformation. In the last mission, Storm Girl also mentioned it. But this time, the strength Lee Hooshin displayed was already astonishing. Even Professor X suspects that Lee Hooshin's strength at the moment has surpassed himself. After all, he knows exactly how strong Chin's second personality is. You can definitely crush yourself. But Lee Hooshin was able to fight against Chin's second personality without losing. That's pretty telling. But this is exactly what Professor X worries about. Yes, my strength has become stronger again. Li Houshan nodded. He couldn't hide this matter from him, and he didn't intend to hide it from Professor X. After all, it is not a big secret that mutants can transform twice. Even in the entire academy, there are quite a few people like this. Therefore, Li Houshan didn't feel that there was anything special about him. So I didn't intend to hide it. Li, although it is a good thing to become stronger, and the second awakening of the X gene will increase the strength rapidly, but sometimes, this is not necessarily a good thing. Professor X suddenly showed a serious look on his face. Professor, what do you mean? Li Houshan was puzzled when he saw Professor X say that, with a serious look on his face. Does the X gene have any hidden information? Did he not know? Ha ha. Seeing Li Houshan's puzzled face, Professor X suddenly smiled. Actually, according to my research on the X gene, it is very difficult for normal mutants to change their abilities after they awaken their abilities. Even if some subsidiary abilities are derived after a lot of practice and development, they are only an extension of the original mutant abilities. But there are always some exceptions. He immediately explained to Li Houshan. Exception? Are you talking about the second awakening of the X gene? Li Houshan thought for a while, then spoke immediately. More or less. I've seen a mutant before. He was just a Delta-class mutant with very weak abilities, but due to some reasons, he evolved out of anger. Originally his ability was just a very simple release of light. To put it bluntly, this mutant ability is very tasteless, and the light it emits is not even as good as military outdoor lights. But when his ability evolved, he was able to release scorching heat rays. The power of this ray is not even much worse than Scott's laser beam. And unlike Scott's Cyclops, which can only release light beams through the eyes, that person can release powerful scorching high-temperature rays from anywhere in his body. It can even control these high-temperature rays and turn them into an energy shield. Even hot weapons such as rocket launchers can't blast through the defense. Its strength is amazing. Back then, the beautiful country sent many powerful mutant agents, but all of them never returned. In the end, the other party found me. After all, according to the agreement between the X-Men and the high-level parties, when such illegal and criminal mutants appear, we have the responsibility to arrest and deal with them. This is a very dangerous mission. Just when I was about to organize the X-Men to carry out the mission was cancelled. When Professor X said this, a trace of solemnity flashed in Li Houshan's eyes. Why is this? Li Houshan asked consciously. Because that mutant turned himself into ashes in the end. When Professor X said this, a trace of regret flashed in his eyes. Obviously it is a very powerful ability. If it can be controlled well, its strength is at least alpha level. It's a pity that it turned into ashes in broad daylight. Li Houshan was speechless when he heard the words. He suddenly understood what Professor X meant. Maybe it's because Li Houshan's strength has improved a bit recently, which made Professor X think of that mutant. Over the years, that matter is still in my heart, so I have never given up on studying the X gene. Finally, according to the conclusion I came to, as I said earlier, the moment each mutant awakens, his ability is fixed, and his upper limit has been locked. The X gene is more like a shackle in a standard human body. He is the key to liberate the power in the body, but at the same time it is also a lock to protect the lives of mutants. A person with a strong potential will also have a strong awakened mutant ability, which is what we call extraordinary talent. And those mutants with weak potential will have weak abilities after awakening. But the abilities of mutants are ever-changing, and even genetics, it is difficult to inherit them. But I discovered the secret of the second awakening of the X gene. Having said that, Professor X's eyes became serious. Once a mutant undergoes a second awakening, he will consume his vitality. Some people are even able to break through the boundaries and forcibly awaken 3 times and 4 times, but the vitality they burn will be even greater. Although there is no science yet, it can prove the existence of vitality, that is, the existence of longevity. But there is no doubt that people have a lifespan. And the multiple awakenings of mutants burn their vitality and shorten their lifespan. The mutant was turned into ashes in broad daylight because his vitality was completely burned. And once the vitality is exhausted, people can only be turned into fly ash, and no power can save them. So you are currently getting more and more powerful, you must use it carefully. Professor X said to Li Houshan very seriously. Although he didn't know why Li Houshan became so powerful. But based on his research on the X gene, perhaps this is the only possibility. That's Li Houshan undergoing multiple awakenings. That's why his strength has become stronger and stronger, and he has awakened various abilities. But the consequence of this is that the vitality is quickly burned. In the end, the lifespan burns out, turning into ashes like the mutant he once saw. Don't worry, Professor, I understand. Li Houshan nodded immediately. But actually he wasn't too worried. Because his becoming stronger is completely different from what Professor X guessed. Li Houshan became stronger because of the system created by the X gene in his body. Even these capabilities are brought about by the system. Whether it's him becoming stronger after basking in the sun, or a god-level inheritance template, the power he brings is based on the rules of the X gene. Moreover, Li Houshan suspects that his X gene also belongs to the most powerful cosmic force in this world. Even the power of the universe in the most powerful omnipotent universe. Rather than a simple single universe or the forces in the multiverse. As for which level it belongs to, even Li Houshan couldn't guess it. It can only be speculated after the power of its X gene promotion reaches the limit and is close to the ceiling. But at present, it seems that his momentum of becoming stronger has not declined in the slightest. It's just that Li Houshan absolutely cannot tell Professor X about these things. Although it's not that he doesn't trust Professor X, Li Houshan still wants to preserve his whole cards to the greatest extent. Otherwise, in this chaotic world, in this world where superpowers are flying all over the sky and mutants are overflowing with abilities, it is easy to not even know how to die. After all, this is not a simple Earth. It is a terrifying world full of various single universes, multiverses, parallel universes, and even super large universes and omnipotent universes. So don't use your transformation ability until it's necessary. Seeing that Li Houshan didn't care too much, Professor X reminded him seriously again. This is the most gifted student he has ever seen. Perhaps in the future, they can assist Scott and become the leader of mutants in this world together. Let the X-Men better protect the world and mutants. So Professor X also began to pay attention to Li Houshan seriously. From this point, Professor X suddenly felt that Orlo, the Storm Girl, had a good vision. Li Houshan is indeed a cultivated person. After Li Houshan left from Professor X, back to his dormitory, vitality and longevity. Suddenly his eyes flashed. I think something should be added to the properties panel. Have a look at the force of rules, although the creation system may not be enough. But add a property bar to the property panel. Still no problem. Create. Li Houshan thought suddenly. Use the power of rules to start upgrading the system. Hoo-hoo. After a while, all the rule power accumulated just now was consumed by Li Houshan. But his system also has brand new attributes, which makes Li Houshan feel like he has changed his skin. Host. Li Houshan. Lifespan. 101 years. Origin. Power of rules 0.0%. Strength. 121 tons. Spirit. 556 3 for normal people. Physical strength. 5387 10 for ordinary people. Speed. 472 meters per second. System space. Cube. Possessed systems. Spiritual shielding system. Sunning to become stronger system. God level inheritance system. Super battle space system. God level inheritance system template 1. Character. Kakarot Son Goku. Race. Saiyan. Progress. 12.3%. Abilities. Dancing Kongshu. Turtle Shockwave. Sun Fist. Control Chi. Energy Bullet. Violence. High-speed flight. Teleportation. Transformation. Super Saiyan 1 Level 10. Saiyan Giant Ape combat power increased by 1700 times, need more than million Bruzibo. Talent. Blood of Battle. My lifespan is only 101 years. It seems that Super Saiyans can't increase their lifespan much, and it's just a little longer than ordinary people on Earth. Li Houshan looked at the attribute panel, touched his chin and secretly thought. Even some long-lived ordinary people on the Earth can live to 110 years old. A few years longer than this Super Saiyan. However, I have decided that next time when the source is full, I will make a Majin Buu template. The lifespan will definitely be longer by then. This origin is Li Houshan's power of rules. As for the lifespan, it is the data that is judged and sorted out by the system based on the combination of the cell energy in his body at the moment, the speed of metabolism, and the time and space of weakness. And it's instant. The next step is to wait slowly. Li Houshan thought secretly. It takes a lot of time to restore the power of the source. The inheritance of templates also takes time. So it can be said that what Li Houshan lacks most now is time. But I'm not wasting time, I still have a lot of things to deal with. In his super battle space, he just defeated the second generation of Li Houshan who had just doubled. And the limit of the super battle space is 3 times the second generation of Li Houshan, so he still has a long way to go. Enter. After simply stretching, Li Houshan took a deep breath and found a comfortable position to sit down, and immediately began to enter the super battle space for cultivation. Whoosh! Immediately, the dull second generation of Li Houshan appeared. Still double the strength. He did not choose to double the strength of Li Houshan's second generation. Because for the time being, he still can't easily defeat the second generation of Li Houshan. So even if the goal is set at twice the strength, it will have no effect. It was nothing more than being severely beaten by myself. Li Houshan's idea is very simple, when he can easily defeat the second generation of Li Houshan. Then double the level of Li Houshan's second generation. Boom! The second generation of Li Houshan, who doesn't talk too much, is still the same as before, and directly launched an attack when he came up. The me now is not so easily defeated by you. Seeing the second generation of Li Houshan galloping towards him, a smile appeared on Li Houshan's face. After all, he has been tortured and killed so many times, not only can he face death calmly now, but he can also have a calm demeanor. The current him, although there is no way to easily defeat the second generation of Li Houshan. But it is not so easy to be defeated and killed by it as before. Boom! The two fists faced each other, and a terrifying ripple immediately echoed around. With one blow, the two were evenly divided. Li Houshan raised his foot suddenly, and the other party did the same. Rumbling, the knees of the two collided, causing another violent explosion. Next moment, Li Houshan punched fiercely with his right hand, and the Qigong bomb exploded immediately. But the law of smoke without injury is fully reflected at this time. The second generation of Li Houshan was unscathed, and at the same time he used a Qigong cannon. Bang! Li Houshan was immediately sent flying, but at this moment, Li Houshan suddenly disappeared. But the next moment, he suddenly appeared behind Li Houshan's second generation. Teleport. At the same time as he unfolded this move, he punched the opponent hard on the head. Whoosh! But in the blink of an eye, the second generation of Li Hao Tiantian also disappeared. Appeared beside Li Houshan in an instant. The opponent has all the abilities of Li Houshan, so he will also use teleportation. Boom boom. The two of them were like this, you punched each other, mixed with air bomb attacks from time to time. Very crazy and fierce fighting. In a blink of an eye, there were already more than 200 strokes. But neither seemed to tire or show signs of stopping. From this point, it can be seen that the strength of Li Houshan and the second generation of Li Houshan is almost the same. The crazy fight lasted until nearly 500 moves, and finally Li Houshan seized a chance. Whoosh! He suddenly came behind Li Houshan's second generation, and pierced through the opponent's heart with an energy sword. You can't do that. Li Houshan suddenly laughed. Although the battle space system can replicate Li Houshan's power, it is only in the state when it was first entered. As long as Li Houshan can improve in battle, the second generation of Li Houshan copied by the system will be weaker than Li Houshan. In the fierce battle just now, Li Houshan realized the control over energy. He compressed the air bomb to create a lightsaber-like effect. This trick was actually used when Kakarot and Vegeta were combined. In the past, Li Houshan didn't know how to compress energy into a lightsaber, but after these 500 crazy moves, through the use of energy, it gradually becomes higher and higher. Finally created this trick. Although the two fought for nearly 500 cards, Li Houshan was only a little out of breath and did not suffer any major injuries. The strength of the two is actually about the same, but during the battle, Li Houshan understood a new move. So defeated the second generation of Li Houshan. Now if the two meet again, Li Houshan is confident that he can kill him within 200 moves. Of course, if at this moment, Li Houshan leaves this space and chooses his opponent again, Then the opponent will also have the lightsaber trick he just comprehended now. From this point of view, the combat space system is indeed very against the sky. This point is unmatched by anyone. Because no one knows you better than yourself. And it is also a self that can grow and improve with you at any time, and even be 3 times stronger than you. This is the real strongest teacher. I'm a little hungry, let's eat. Li Houshan immediately withdrew from the combat space. Although there is no injury, it consumes a lot of physical strength. Moreover, he found that he had exhausted a lot of physical strength recently. Fortunately, the cafeteria of Xavier School has supper, but there is no need to worry about having nothing to eat. Yikanteen leaving the dormitory, go to the cafeteria to find something to eat. It turned out that Alice was standing at the door of the dormitory. Okay, what are you doing standing here? Li Houshan suddenly asked curiously. Just now I went to the room to look for you, and found that you were not in the dormitory, but I didn't find you anywhere else, so I waited for you here. Alice spoke immediately. Although she didn't say much, Li Houshan still saw a trace of grievance and a little fear in the corner of Alice's eyes. It seems that I didn't think carefully. Li Houshan thought for a moment. Just now Li Houshan chose to enter the battle space with his body, so naturally Alice couldn't find Li Houshan. I just went to practice. Li Houshan thought for a while, then spoke immediately. Cultivation. Alice suddenly frowned. She was not very satisfied with Li Houshan's answer. Because Alice had been to the training ground just now, and she didn't find Li Houshan there. But now Li Houshan told Alice that he went to training just now. So Alice subconsciously thought that Li Houshan was prevaricating him. He even felt that Li Houshan was deliberately avoiding her. For a while, the grievance on Alice's face became more intense, but she was so cold that she would never cry in front of Li Houshan. It's just that the body couldn't help shaking. You do not believe. Seeing Alice like this, Li Houshan immediately understood the other party. He couldn't believe what he said, so he shook his head helplessly. But whoever will replace it should also think the same way. After all, I searched around Xavier Academy before, but I couldn't find myself, and the other party even went to the training ground. Now that he said he went to train, he was naturally suspected of being a liar. Go. Thinking of this, Li Houshan suddenly smiled, and grabbed Alice's hand. Quote. Alice didn't speak, but she was still very wronged. Soon the two returned to Li Houshan's dormitory. I will only tell you this secret. Seeing that Alice was still aggrieved and wanted to cry, Li Houshan pinched her face immediately, then said with a smile. He didn't give Alice too much explanation, he only saw a thought. The bodies of both Alice and Li Houshan disappeared, appearing in the super battle space. Here is. Seeing this scene, Alice, who was still extremely wronged, suddenly showed a look of shock in her eyes. What you see now is my biggest secret. This is one of the reasons why I became stronger. You can call this a super training ground, this is my exclusive fighting space. In it, I can fight freely and even choose my opponent. Li Houshan spoke immediately. Is this also your mutant ability? Alice said in shock. She could clearly feel that the space around her was different from before. Here, even when she wanted to use her abilities, there was an inexplicable force suppressing her power. It seems that without the permission of the owner of this space, she is an ordinary girl here without the power to restrain a chicken. Not bad. This is also one of my mutant abilities, which can be regarded as auxiliary. I usually come here to fight when I have nothing to do. You came to find me just now because I entered this battle space, so you didn't find me. Li Houshan said with a smile. So you misunderstood me, I didn't mean to hide from you on purpose. Sorry, it's okay, I shouldn't have doubted you. It's not your fault, after all, I didn't make it clear. You are so kind to me. Speak stupid things. No matter where you go in the future, can you take me with you? If my strength is not enough, you can tell me and I can wait for you, but please don't let me miss you. I remembered. Well, don't be like this, you don't need to be like this. This is what I want. Oh, how do you like it? Of course, Goose. Half an hour later, Li Houshan took Alice to the cafeteria for supper. Then Alice went to rest contentedly. As for Li Houshan, after returning, he entered the combat space again, and a spiritual battle ensued. There is no way, he is more suitable for fighting in the state of Saint mode, with no distractions. Time passed little by little, and it was another 5 days. Scott has been healed. After all, there are mutants in the academy who are good at healing. Although not particularly powerful, but with the treatment chamber, after 3 days, Scott returned to normal state. It's just that Scott at this moment is extremely weak. Not to mention fighting, even walking needs someone to help. In normal times, he is sitting in a wheelchair just like Professor X. He really became Professor X's most proud student, and even the styles of the wheelchairs are similar. This made everyone couldn't help but start his joke, but Scott was not angry. It can even be said that these days, he is in a very good mood. Because Jean is still alive. And he also learned the reason why Chin hurt himself from everyone. That was not Chin's original intention, but the second personality's hunger addiction caused by lack of energy. That's what hurt him. This made Scott's heart full of hope again. And these 5 days, Lee Ho-shin has been practicing hard in the combat space. Now he can already defeat the second generation of Lee Ho-shin within 100 moves. But this is not what Lee Ho-shin is satisfied with. He had to defeat the second generation of Lee Ho-shin strokes before he could unlock the double Lee Ho-shin second generation. The sun for these 5 days was very strong, which made Lee Ho-shin's speed of becoming stronger much faster. The power of rules has also accumulated to 10%. According to the percentage of template progress, it will take up to 5 more days to reach the 20% level. At that time, a new inheritance template can be created. And Lee Ho-shin has confirmed that the new template character is Majin Buu. In this way, not only the self-healing ability can beat Wolverine, but also it can exist in space, which greatly enhances the survivability. This day, I just had lunch at noon. Lee Ho-shin took Clarice and Alice to the open-air balcony of the library to bask in the sun. He had just sat down, and before he could eat the grapes that Clarice had peeled, he saw the Storm walking over. Storm Girl and the others have been taking care of Scott and dealing with school matters these days. So seeing Storm Girl coming to him, Lee Ho-shin was a little curious. We are going to conduct a joint simulation exercise mission of the X-Men. You are also an X-Men, so you must also participate in the exercise mission. This is your first joint mission with the X-Men. Storm Maiden Orlo said with a smile. Company simulation. Lee Ho-shin was stunned for a moment, and became curious. That's right, when going out on a mission, sometimes it is necessary to cooperate in combat. So in normal times, we will conduct some cooperative battles. You have just joined the X-Men, and you are not very familiar with other people's abilities. So conducting joint simulations can improve your understanding of other people's abilities and better cooperative combat. Storm Girl said with a smile. It is good. Lee Ho-shin nodded and did not refuse. Anyway, if it was him, he would also enter the battle space to practice. Now it's fun to participate in co-sims and fight with the rest of the X-Men. Especially the Saiyan blood in his body began to boil a little when he heard that there was a battle. I hope that after obtaining other inheritance templates, I can suppress the fighting-loving character of Saiyans. Lee Ho-shin suddenly thought secretly in his heart. If it is possible, it is safest to grow quietly and slowly, and gradually become stronger. I also need to go. And I. At this time, Clarice and Alice both stood up. Storm Yu, Oro Lorden, was taken aback. Lee Ho-shin was originally invited, but he did not expect that the 2 girls of Lares would also want to join the joint simulated battle. Clarice, Alice, this is a cooperative battle of the X-Men. Storm shook her head suddenly. This is equivalent to rejecting 2 people. After all, it belongs to the cooperative battle of the X-Men, and Clarice and Alice are not the X-Men. Joining the joint simulation has no effect, but will affect the cooperation of others. We can join the X-Men. At this moment, the 2 said in unison. Hearing the 2 people's answers, Storm Girl was stunned. It was a bit beyond her expectation. Alice, your strength is enough to join the X-Men. But whether you agree to join, you still need to ask the professor. Storm Girl said. Can. Alice nodded instantly. As for Clarice, your strength is still a little weak, you should study hard at school. When your strength becomes stronger in the future, if you still want to join the X-Men, I will invite the professor. Orlo said. No, I have improved my strength very quickly recently, and I have been training hard. I still have Lee, the adamantium dagger that was given to me. Cooperating with my ability, it is still very useful. Clariston looked at Storm, her eyes full of determination. Okay, let me ask the professor. Storm looked at Clarice, who stared at her steadfastly. This made Orlo finally choose to compromise and shook his head helplessly. Great. Clarice immediately made a victory gesture with Lee Haoshan. The Storm immediately turned and left to ask Professor X for advice. Why do you two do this? Lee Haoshan immediately looked at Clarice and Alice and said. Alice didn't speak, just looked at him quietly. I've been working hard too. Clarice pouted and said seriously. You guys. Lee Haoshan shook his head. A moment later, Orlo the Storm returned. The professor has agreed to let Alice join, but Clarice, you can only become an intern temporarily. Storm Girl said. Okay. The two girls nodded immediately. Then let's go. Soon Lee Haoshan followed Storm Girl to the training room. This place is much stronger than the previous training ground. It looks very technological at first glance, and the scenes inside can also be simulated. How about it? Seeing Lee Haoshan's curious look, Storm Girl couldn't help but smile. Very good. This kind of training is not so easy to build. It should be the use of mutant abilities. Lee Haoshan couldn't help admiring it. Of course, as the X-Men, we are going to the front line. So the training room built will naturally not be too bad. Orlo said with a smile. Okay, people are coming. The Storm immediately walked towards the crowd. Lee Haoshan turned his head and saw Katie the Phantom Cat, Colossus, Poppy the Iceman, Anna the Rakshasa, and Logan the Wolverine. The main members of these X-Men are all there. Everyone, come here, let me introduce you, our new member. Storm Girl immediately called everyone over. Alice, we will be our teammates from now on. The professor has agreed to make her a member of the X-Men and Clarice an intern. Orlo immediately introduced it to everyone. Isn't it? Alice is fine, she's just a little younger than Katie, and she's also very strong. But Clarice is still young. It's just an intern, it's okay. But I always feel that the current Clarice should study hard in class. The professor agrees, which proves that he has considered this matter, and you don't have to worry about it. All right, the crowd immediately began to discuss. But finally agreed to the addition of 2 new players. Okay, everyone listen to me. The Storm immediately clapped her hands, drawing everyone's attention to herself. Now that everyone is full, let me talk about this joint simulation. This task was personally selected by the professor. Mostly robots, but these robots also have mutant abilities. And our main task is to fight together to wipe out all these robots. Seeing that everyone was looking at her, Stormy, he explained the content of this joint simulation. Storm, are you kidding me? How could a robot have mutant abilities? I don't think it's important to have mutant abilities, right? It's the target anyway, just destroy him. It's just a machine, I can turn them into big ice cubes in an instant. Everyone laughed, but didn't care at all. A robot with mutant abilities. Lee Haoshan did raise his eyebrows. Because the image of the Sentinel appeared in his mind immediately. But the current professor probably doesn't know about the Sentinel project, right? Lee Haoshan couldn't help feeling a little puzzled. Okay, get ready at home. Storm Girl immediately reminded everyone. Whoosh. Then the venue of the training room changed unexpectedly. In a blink of an eye, the surrounding environment turned into a barren commercial street. Sure enough, after the space distortion just now, the rules have changed. Lee Haoshan's eyes flashed suddenly. This shows that the construction of the training room must have mutant abilities in it. Be careful. At this moment, Wolverine Logan suddenly drank. Boom. In a blink of an eye, dozens of rocket launchers flew out of the air. This robot's weapon is a bit exaggerated. Katie was speechless for a moment. Even equipped with a rocket launcher. If it hits Wolverine Logan or Colossus, they can still bear it. But she and Luo Shanu couldn't bear it. So he quickly found a place to hide. But there are also people who don't care about this so-called rocket launcher at all. Iceman Bobby immediately turned into an ice wall around him, blocking the rocket launcher. As for Colossus, he directly used his body to carry it hard. Wolverine Logan didn't use his body to carry the rocket launcher hard. Instead, he chose to throw some stone buildings and smashed the rocket launcher. Clarice and Alice escaped early. Drink. At this moment, more than a dozen shells bombarded Lee Hoshin at the same time. But this level of thermal weapons does no harm to the current Lee Hoshin at all. I saw that he didn't dodge, just let out a low drink, and suddenly a terrible air burst out of his body. Those rockets exploded a meter away from him. The explosion was so strong that even Lee Hoshin's body couldn't touch it. He was blown away by the momentum. Lee, you are awesome. Clarice waved to Lee Hoshin excitedly. Whizzing. And at this time, 2 rocket launchers appeared from above Clarice. What? Clarice suddenly exclaimed, slightly flustered. But she still slammed the void, and suddenly a portal appeared. Clarice jumped in. Whoosh. Then there was a shock in the void in the distance, and Clarice came out of it. Not bad. Seeing this scene, Lee Hoshin immediately gave Clarice a thumbs up. Although she was a little flustered just now, Clarice's timing of using the portal. Still very skilled. Humph. At this time, Alice snorted coldly, and then flapped her wings. Flew into the air. The next moment, when she waved her hand, clusters of sparks blasted into 3 shells in the air. Boom. The shell exploded instantly. Alice, you're great too. Lee Hoshin nodded upon seeing this, and promptly sent his appreciation. In fact, Alice's strength should be at the same level as Storm Girl Orlo. And Alice's abilities are relatively balanced. Not only can it fly, but it also has Starfire for medium and long-range attacks, and Hellfire for range attacks. In terms of defense, there is also a protective shield. It can be regarded as quite powerful. Even in the X-Men, the strength can be above average. Buzz. At this moment, a roaring sound suddenly came from the air. Everyone looked up and saw 5 huge robots floating in the sky. Is this the robot? The professor said. It looks very handsome. Very cool. When Bobby the Iceman and the others saw the robot, they couldn't help laughing. But Lee Hoshin's eyes were fixed immediately. It really is a Sentinel. The Sentinel that appeared in front of me at this moment is somewhat similar to the original model of the Sentinel. But it looks a bit more advanced than that one, but it is not as exaggerated as the Sentinel in Reverse the Future. It seems that Professor X has been aware of it for a long time. Lee Hoshin thought that Professor X in this period should not know about the Sentinel project. Perhaps Professor X used a brainwave enhancer to watch other people's memories. He suddenly thought secretly, everyone must be careful, these robots are not simple. Seeing the Sentinel appear, Storm immediately spoke. Obviously Orlo should understand more than others. It is even very possible that Professor X has called the Sentinel project and told Storm. It's just a metal lump, what's there to be afraid of? Iceman Bobby immediately spoke with disdain. I saw him wave his hands, and the surroundings began to turn into a world of ice and snow. His whole body quickly slid on the ice. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding area began to be filled with terrifying ice air. Freeze me. Boom. The powerful freezing air froze one of the sentries in an instant. I just said there's nothing to be afraid of iron bumps. Seeing this scene, Iceman suddenly showed a proud expression. He and Colossus have often sparred, and he doesn't care about dealing with such tough guys. Careful. But Storm Girl's complexion changed, and she quickly exclaimed. But her reminder was still a step too late. I saw a fiery breath erupting from the inside of the Sentinel. The ice on his body was melted in an instant. Kacha kacha. In an instant, a black cannon appeared in front of Iceman Bobby. Fake. Bobby's expression changed immediately, and he couldn't help but curse out. Chug chug. But in an instant, the machine gun fired wildly. Its power was even several times that of Gatling's. The terrifying bullet turned into a fiery snake. In an instant, Bobby the Iceman was submerged. Oh my god, this robot really has the ability to be a mutant. At this moment, everyone finally showed a look of shock. Whoosh. In the void in the distance, a portal opened. Iceman Bobby and Clarice came out from inside. At the critical moment just now, Clarice used her ability to save Bobby the Iceman. Otherwise, the attack speed exceeding 3 times the speed of sound is enough to pierce through steel plates of tens of millimeters. If it hits Bobby the Iceman, one can imagine what will happen. Attention all of you. Although simulation training won't kill people, whoever is killed during the training will be regarded as a failure of the simulation, and money and allowances will be deducted. And those who complete the simulation perfectly will be rewarded with 20 beautiful coins. Storm Girl said immediately. Quote. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. Even if they are X-Men, making money is not so easy. After all, they can't use their abilities to make money like those mutant criminals. As a result, they are actually not very rich. Now I heard that the allowance will be deducted for failing to complete the task, and 20 will be rewarded for completing the task. All of a sudden, it was like a chicken blood. Iceman Bobby, who was a little shocked before, even forgot the horror of the cannon. I even started to fantasize about how to spend the money. Chug chug chug. At this time, other sentries also launched an attack. All of a sudden, the sky was full of artillery fire, and everyone avoided the edge. Even Lee Ho-shin didn't dare to use his body to receive the attack of this cannon. After all, the penetrating power of this machine gun is still very strong. Whether it is a Saiyan or a Super Saiyan, they are still human in essence. Unless the body is protected with chi, the attack of the machine gun can also hurt him. However, the current Lee Ho-shin doesn't have much power to inherit. In the state of ordinary people, it is still impossible to resist this cannon with the body. Except in Super Saiyan form. But Lee Ho-shin didn't want to transform, so there would be no effective training. So, he immediately chose to dodge. And at this time, Lee Ho-shin's training results in the combat space were revealed. Although the attack of this cannon is powerful, it can't touch Lee Ho-shin at all. Pat. Although the firepower of the machine gun is fierce, it can fire more than 1 rounds per minute. But soon these bullets were fired. Good chance. Seeing this scene, everyone rushed out immediately. Losing the suppression of the firepower of the machine gun, everyone immediately started to fight back. Colossus immediately grabbed Wolverine's foot and swung it upwards violently. Wolverine slammed out his sharp claws with both hands, and slashed down on the sentry's neck. The sharp claws made of Edmund metal are indestructible and extremely sharp. Even steel plates can be cut in an instant. And Bobby the Iceman was manipulating power, sealing the surrounding area with ice. He already knew that the Sentinel could release high heat, so this time it was frozen for a moment. Then he used the ice sledgehammer he used to deal with Colossus again. Iron lump, break it for me. Bobby immediately controlled the ice sledgehammer, and slammed it fiercely at the Sentinel's head. The Storm Girl lifted off quickly, and lightning began to fill her body. Rumble. In the end, dozens of bolts of lightning fell crazily and blasted towards the Sentinel. Look at how arrogant you iron lumps are. Iceman Bobby immediately felt complacent again. Swish. However, at this moment, everyone discovered that the Sentinel was not damaged at all. Bobby's ice sledgehammer hit the Sentinel without causing a single scar. However, Storm Girl's lightning struck her without causing any damage. As for Wolverine Logan, stabbing Sentry hard. There were bursts of violent sparks, as if he had stabbed a steel plate. But even a steel plate with a thickness of more than 10 millimeters would be pierced by him in an instant. But the Sentinel is unscathed. Look, at this moment, everyone discovered the skins of these Sentinels. Even the form has changed. God, this robot will use your abilities, Colossus. No way. Is it really the same as Colossus? Only then did everyone realize that at some point, these Sentinels turned into the same state as Colossus. The previous attacks by Iceman Bobby and Storm obviously had no effect. However, when everyone was surprised, the two Sentinels glowed white at the same time. Gradually hundreds of thunderbolts suddenly appeared and bombarded everyone. It's Storm's power. What kind of robot is this? Scrap iron. The crowd was surprised again. They didn't expect that the Sentinel was so difficult to deal with. You can also use the abilities of everyone. Sentinel is really unique. Lee Ho-shin also showed a dignified look on his face. The goal of this Sentinel is to eliminate all mutants. Even in the future, even ordinary people with a trace of mutant genes in their bodies will be wiped out by the Sentinels. So strictly speaking, Lee Ho-shin is also the target of their elimination. In the future, there will definitely be a match against the real Sentinels. So being able to fight against these Sentinels now, for Lee Ho-shin, he can absorb some experience. He also wanted to see if chi had any effect on the Sentinels. After all, these Sentinels can absorb the abilities of mutants, and even imitate them perfectly. But if it is the chi in Dragon Ball, can Xiaoming still absorb it? God Turtle Shockwave. Thinking of this, Lee Ho-shin immediately blasted at the Sentinel. Boom! The terrifying blue beam of light blasted onto a sentry in an instant. Chi chi chi. The Sentinel immediately turned his body into the state of Colossus. But the powerful blue beam of light began to destroy the surface of the Sentinel bit by bit. Click. Seeing Colossus' powers didn't seem to work, so Sentinel started using Iceman Poppy's powers again. It wants to freeze the turtle shock wave. But the destructive power of the shock wave of the tortoise is very powerful, and the temperature itself is not high, but a stronger explosive force. So in just an instant, the ice dissipated. The violent explosion directly blew the Sentinel to pieces. Very good. Although Sentinel is powerful, it has very strong resistance and imitation ability in the face of the ability of the X gene. But when it comes to the power of my chi, it cannot be absorbed and imitated. Seeing this scene, Li Hoshan immediately felt relieved. Otherwise, if the Sentinel Lian Chi's energy can be absorbed and imitated, that would be really hard to deal with. After all, the sentries are not just one or two, they come in groups. Li, you are so strong. Your energy attack is terrifying. The destructive ability seems to be stronger than Scott's Cyclops. Great, everyone spoke immediately. They also fought against the Sentinel just now, so they naturally know how difficult this robot is. But he didn't expect that Li Hoshan was the first to kill the Sentinel. Moreover, the opponent was destructive, and easily eliminated a Sentinel robot. Continue. Everyone pay attention to safety, the enemy has not been eliminated yet. Storm Girl immediately opened her mouth to remind. I won't be careless this time. Get rid of these iron bumps. Everyone immediately started to shoot again. With Li Hoshan leading the way, everyone's morale has also improved a lot. It seems that it is really right to let Li Hoshan participate in this joint simulation. Seeing this scene, Storm suddenly nodded inwardly. Another one. Li Hoshan also continued to rush up. He now knew that although Sentinel was powerful, he couldn't imitate his chi. This is an advantage for him. Swish. The white air wave instantly filled the whole body, and Li Hoshan's speed suddenly increased sharply. In a blink of an eye, a sentry appeared behind him. The combat awareness is a bit poor, far inferior to Li Hoshan's second generation. Immediately, his hands stretched out and grabbed one of his thighs. Then shake your arms hard. Click. With a loud noise, the thigh of the Sentinel robot. It was unexpectedly broken by Li Hoshan with his bare hands. The revelation inside sparks everywhere. There are even extremely forced. Dazed, I don't know if it's oil or blood coming out. Fake. Li, you are so fierce. From now on, I, Bobby the Iceman, will call you the Hercules of Xavier College. Not far away, Iceman Bobby, who had just frozen a sentry, couldn't help but exclaimed when he saw this scene. Colossus, isn't your strength similar to that of Li Shang? How could someone break a robot with his bare hands, but you were beaten into the air? Iceman Bobby looked at Colossus, who had just been punched by a sentry, and said involuntarily. Colossus was speechless for a while. He also wanted to break the robot with his bare hands. But the Sentinel was very powerful. The moment he touched him, his body also turned into that special material. The two are made of the same material, but the other party is much bigger than him, and his strength is definitely not weaker than him. In this way, Colossus has no advantage at all, and even suffers a lot in terms of size. For a while, Colossus felt a little aggrieved. If the sentry doesn't imitate his ability, rely on the sentry's normal state. He is also confident that he can break the opponent's arm. Boom. Careful. At this moment, the sentry in front of Iceman Bobby suddenly began to emit a fiery red light from his head. Cyclops. Even Scott's abilities. Polly was speechless for a moment. Although his freezing is powerful, it is enough to freeze an ice wall more than 20 centimeters thick in an instant. But that's it. With his current strength, he still can't compete with Cyclops' laser beam. You play with themselves. Bobby raised his middle finger in contempt, and then the cold air all over his body flickered. Click click. In a blink of an eye, the surroundings turned into a world of ice and snow, and with a shovel under his feet, he left the spot. Boom. The scorching laser beam rushed to the rear in an instant, facing Li Hoshan directly. Li Hoshan immediately raised his hand, and a shock wave of miniature turtles blasted over. Two beams of light, one blue and one red, instantly stalemate in the air. Swish. At this moment, the sentry's side suddenly trembled in the void. A portal appeared there. Then I saw Alice and Clarice, who came out of it. The nebula chains in Alice's hand immediately crossed each other, trapping the Sentinel's neck and arms. Bind it up. And Clarice, from top to bottom, directly used the Edmund metal dagger to stab the Sentinel's sky cap fiercely. Puff. Although the Sentinel is extremely hard, it does not have the ability to use the Colossus. Still unable to resist the attack of Edmund metal, the Sentinel was attacked, and the laser beam dissipated immediately, and he turned around sharply. It wanted to kill the two of them. But at this moment, Clarice grabbed Alice's hand, instantly jumped into the shuttle door and disappeared. On the other side, Wolverine Logan fell from the sky. Base. The sharp claws in his hand slammed into the wound made by Clarice. This time, Wolverine directly tore his head in half, and chopped it off from his neck. The timing of Clarice's cooperation is really good. Seeing this scene, Lee Ho-shin's eyes lit up immediately, and he couldn't help admiring it. Although Clarice's single body strength is a bit weak, she plays an auxiliary role. Still very powerful, and then the other people also cooperated one after another, much calmer than before. Soon the 5 Sentinels were all wiped out. This time the joint simulation can be regarded as a perfect end. Your performance is very good, and I believe the professor will be very satisfied. Okay, you can go back and rest. I'm going to the professor to make a summary. Storm leaves to find the professor. And everyone left the training room of the underground base and went back to their dormitories. Lee Ho-shin took Clarice and Alice directly to the cafeteria. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.